explain all of game to you in 3 minutes. And yes, it is called game because there is an objective. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't seem to understand that. There is a beginning point and no clearly defined endpoint, and a massive journey along the way. What you see behind me here is called the compliance ladder. And this is how in my head I see it. So, try to understand the diagram. Basically, the way it works is that every woman has a compliance ladder. And like I said before, the only thing you will ever want out of a woman is her compliance. Any question you will ever ask me concerning women will all be some compliance related question. How do I get this girl to reply my text? How do I get her to not flake on me? How do I get her to come out on a date with me? How do I get her to be my girlfriend, my fiance, my wife, have my babies, move in with me, whatever. The only reason you're watching me right now is because you want to know how to get compliance from women consistently. Studying this graph over here that I made is going to help you do that. In the initial stages, here's what we call our general investment. Basically, these are the things that she's willing to do or comply with as long as you meet her minimum threshold of attractiveness. And I'm talking the most minute things, like leaving her hand out there to actually shake yours when you reach for a handshake. Like telling you her name and not a fake one. Like giving you her number, her actual phone number and not her Snapchat. Over here is what we call value investment. You see how some parts of the graph poke out just like that? Those are what we call major checkpoints. And you get into the next stages of compliance by crossing those major checkpoints. For women, the first initial major checkpoint is sex. Why is it sex, you may ask? Because it's not something she gives to just anyone. It's not a part of general investment. Yes, she might swipe right on anyone on Tinder or go out on a date with anyone, but to open her legs, a whole different level of investment. You have to meet a certain level of attractiveness for that, and then you move into value investment. That's when she sees you as valuable and sex-worthy and is willing to do a little more for you. It's very common in this stage that women begin to show you even higher indicators of interest. Now she's offering to take you out on dates, cook you dinner, buy you drinks. Hell, at this point, she's letting you borrow her car. And the beauty of it is, the more compliance she gives, the more emotionally invested she is. So she will go up this ladder naturally, which brings us to the next stage. This one, which is called deep connection. This is where she's done so much up to this point for you that she's convinced herself that she's in love with you. And yes, as harsh as it sounds, love is something that happens within them. It's their responsibility, not ours. Now she's seeing the future with you. She's daydreaming about being barefoot and pregnant for you. But the coup de grace of all this is this point up here, what I like to call hypnotic rhythm, a concept I borrowed from a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Basically, at this point, she's just an autopilot. There is a lot more to go into here, so let me know if you want to see more. This part 2 is long overdue. Let's talk about the compliance ladder some more. Like I've said on multiple occasions, the strength of your relationship is directly proportional to the compliance level of your girl. Don't worry about how much you're willing to do for her. That's not what's important here. It's about how much she's willing to do for you. But you can't just walk up to a girl and ask her for a giant favor like, come take a bullet for me. That won't work. That's why compliance in general is a ladder. It's something that she has to go up gradually. Here's something I gotta make clear in this part right now. I built the compliance ladder to demonstrate the linear path a woman's compliance levels takes over time. But the truth is, throughout the course of a relationship, you may even come down the ladder from time to time. Don't worry, don't panic, this is completely normal. It is not unheard of that a guy that was in deep connection with his girl, aka in love with her, finds a way to fuck up so bad that he goes all the way down to general investment. And there's in general a few reasons for this. There are, in my personal opinion, 3 major reasons why things like that will happen. The first one is an inability to identify correctly where you stand on the compliance ladder. And the reason you want to know that is because depending on where you are, you have to switch your behavior up slightly. An inability to make the correct adjustment depending on where you are in the compliance ladder will cause you to fall down the compliance ladder. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're right here with a girl, value investment. At this point, you've had sex with her, and more importantly, you're getting a little more than just sex from her. Or at least you're supposed to be. Because what you should be doing is asking her for greater levels of compliance. At this point, your wish, to a certain extent, is her command. But if you're just like most guys and are content with just getting sex and that's all, then more than likely you're making the huge mistake of not asking her for more than sex. Which ironically makes you a bad and indecisive leader in her eyes. So what does she do? She deems you unfit to be at this stage and naturally brings you back down to this one. Maybe even completely get rid of you. Because that's an unspoken rule about the compliance ladder. You need to get greedier the higher up the ladder you go. Trust me when I say this, you cannot go up this ladder in an efficient manner by being conservative. With each new stage you find yourself in, you have to go out of your way to make higher demands of her, or else she'll feel like the relationship isn't being led in any direction. The second major reason most people fall down the compliance ladder like crazy is because they don't know how to pass the major checkpoints. Remember what I told you in the first part about these parts over here that stick out like that? Those are major checkpoints in the compliance ladder. And you need to cross those checkpoints to get to the next stage in the compliance ladder. The higher up you go, the harder each major checkpoint becomes, and the more investment you'll require of her to be able to pass each checkpoint. This is true for every girl on this planet. It is harder to get them to fall in love than to have sex with you, and it's even harder to get them to be completely obsessed with you. Now, depending on the girl, her barrier for entry in general might be lower or higher. We're not going to get into that in this video. But what we will discuss in this video is the general principles and philosophies that I've come up with over the years on how to cross each of these major checkpoints effectively. Because when it comes down to it, all these major checkpoints are literally the same. What makes them different is the context, the complexity, and the intensity of the tests themselves. Oh, by the way, did I mention that? Each of these major checkpoints require you to pass some kind of test to get to the next stage. Think of them like the final boss in every stage of a video game. If you played Pokemon growing up, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the first gym leader. This is the last gym leader. This is the Pokemon League. Simple enough. Or if you're a sports fan, this is the preseason games. These are the regular season games. And right here's the playoffs, fellas. You want to get to the Super Bowl. Alright, these are the general rules around how each major checkpoint works. Like I said before, they are all in the form of a test of some kind. And the test is always the same. It is a test of your frame and your confidence. More specifically, it's a test to see how shakeable your confidence can be. In the beginning stages, she wants to see how well you can keep your confidence up even when she's throwing shit at you. She wants to see if you get offended or take her too seriously or just give up entirely. Because most guys do. The vast majority of guys get filtered out right here. She'll say and do things to test your levels of certainty in yourself. She'll choose not to reply your text too quickly to see how you respond to that. She'll tell you to your face that she doesn't date men that are members of your race, just to see if you crack and go, well, fuck you then. Or you can be completely cool and chill about it and say, listen, there's a first time for everything. Or if you're an arrogant fuck like me, you say, what the, dating? Relax, we just met each other. I'm not even thinking about that. Let's get to know each other first, and then maybe we can see where this goes. And that's the beauty of this first stage. All you need to get past here is words. Pure psychological and verbal confidence. When you're here, though, to get to the next stage, you need a little more than words. You need some action to follow behind it. At this point, the shit tests come in the form of not just words, but in action as well. I like to call this the testing the boundaries phase. It's the phase where she begins to overestimate her value in your eyes. She'll begin to show you greater levels of defiance and resistance. Because don't forget, up until this point, it's been relatively smooth sailing for you. She wants to see how confident you really are when things aren't going your way. Because if you think about it, that is the best way to test your confidence. Anyone can be confident when the circumstance allows them to be. True champions stay confident when shit hits the fan. If you're inside my self-belief mini course, you already know all this and more. Then there's the next stage, deep connection. This is where shit gets real. Because the testing comes this time with something very potent called entitlement. She's not just kind of testing what her value is to you at this point. Oh, no. At this point, she has completely assumed her value to you. And it in turn makes her very comfortable to do a bunch of wild shit. I can't remember who I was saying this to the other day, but I remember telling them, Kim got with Pete Davidson as a way to test Kanye at this stage right there. You might think of it as crazy. A woman will really go and leave her man for another man as a way to test him? What the hell? But trust me, this is the creature we are dealing with. So don't be surprised when you hear Kim and Kanye are back together. Do not be surprised. Alright, let's move on to the third reason people drop down the compliance ladder. The third major reason most people drop down the compliance ladder is, frankly, something I've personally struggled with for years. And that is an inability to adequately and properly reward women as they go up the compliance ladder. This is so key, man. Please pay close attention to this. Do not make my mistakes. With each level of compliance you ask of women and they adequately comply, You have to remember to reward them for that compliance. You don't have to remember to do it every time, but when you do, you have to go all out. Because I can tell you right now from my personal experience, the major reason most girls have left me is buyer's remorse. And yes, in relationships, that is a real thing. There's two kinds of buyer's remorse though. The first where you overpromise and underdeliver. I'm not talking about that kind. If you have that problem, then you're probably still at this stage with the girl. Don't worry, easy fix. Just don't overpromise or don't underdeliver. The kind of buyer's remorse I'm talking about is the other kind. The one where she feels like she's complying to you to the highest degree, but you're not giving her anything in return to match that. Because if you really think about it, while she's going up the compliance ladder for you, you're going up a compliance ladder of sorts for her. Every time you forget that little fact, your relationship will suffer. I'm telling you right now from experience. With each level of the compliance ladder you get to, especially with each major checkpoint, you have to make sure that she feels like $1,000,000. Shower her adequately with your time, your attention, your affection, your love, your focus, everything. In case no one's ever told you, obsession is a massive milestone for women. And the only way they're getting there is if they feel safe enough to get there for you. And they're not going to feel safe enough getting there for you if you're too busy being Mr. Too Cool for School. I've been saying this for years now, guys. You're not going to get a girl obsessed with you if she doesn't think to some degree you're obsessed with her too. They need to feel at ease with the idea of being obsessed with you. And the only way they feel comfortable doing that is to know that you're in love with them too. Maybe not to the same extent, but god damn it, be in love with this bitch too. For the love of God. And that's a major secret to the compliance ladder in general. Whatever new stage of compliance you want from the girl, go there first. You're the man, you're the leader. Make her know it's okay to get to that point for you. People get surprised when I tell all my girlfriends I love you first. Because it goes against everything all these other dating coaches teach you out there. Never tell a girl you love her first, wee. And I understand why they're saying it. It's not bad advice necessarily. But as a man and as the leader of the relationship, you can get away with anything as long as you do it from a place of power and authority. Especially when you get to this point, man, it's like ice cold water. You gotta jump in first to let them know the water's fine. Okay, now let's talk about how to get back up on the compliance ladder after you've made mistakes and fallen down. The general rule to remember around that is these little scribblings I have at the bottom of this diagram, which is that attraction, compliance, and investment takes you up the ladder, while repulsion, defiance, and divestment takes you down the ladder. Basically, as long as you remember to hold frame correctly as that man in her life, you should naturally keep going up the ladder. Which means the more you lose frame and fail these major tests I was telling you about before, the quicker down the ladder you go. So the question becomes, can you reignite attraction and respect in a woman that's lost it for you? And the answer to that is, yeah, very easily actually. And it comes down to two words: strength, projection. That's your word of the day. Tattoo it to your back if you have to, okay? The reason you fell down the ladder to begin with is because you did specific things or even said specific things that projected weakness. You either did too many weak things in a row in these little pockets in here and in here, or you got to these major tests over here and you failed. So naturally, your leadership, authority, and attractiveness as a man were all called into question and you were demoted. In order to get back up the ladder, you only need to be doing the opposite of what you were doing before. But hold on now, this is where it kind of gets a little tricky. Because there's a few things that are now working against you at this point. One, getting back up the ladder is gonna be a little harder than the first time around. Women are biologically and evolutionarily incentivized to make sure that your climb back up the ladder is a lot harder. And the reason for that is simple. They want to make sure beyond every reasonable doubt that they're actually with the baddest motherfucker they can get. They let you up the ladder the first time around and then found out the hard way later on that you might actually be a charlatan. You're not as strong as you were perceived to be initially. So if you want to get back up there, she's gonna make sure you're definitely who you say you are this time around. These tests will become a lot harder. This is especially true if you mess up in the initial general investment stages. Oh my god, don't do that. Her willingness to replace you completely and even not let you try to climb back up the ladder again is a lot higher. And the reason for that simply is because you never actually hit the higher stages in the compliance ladder for her. If, for instance, you got to deep connection or even hypnotic rhythm and then fell down from there, then it would be a different story. She'd be a lot more lenient with you and allow you to try again, just because a lot of guys don't usually get up to that point. You're a rare kind of guy in her eyes, and that'll work in your favor. Which is why getting back with an ex that was deeply in love with you, realistically, is like the easiest thing in the world. But compare that with trying to go on a second date with a girl who you went on the first date with that went terribly. Yeah, you're better off just starting over with another girl. The next thing you have to look out for when you're going back up the compliance ladder is how you want to go about projecting strength, and there are two different ways. The first way is a very direct and straight to the point way, which is the redistribution of your attention, protection, resources, and value in general. Basically, you're trying to manually redistribute the validation that you give her. That's what techniques like dread game, pulling away, and the no contact rule attempt to do. Basically, attempting to shock the woman back into compliance to you and artificially get her to begin to take you back up the compliance ladder again. The problem with those methods is they don't work for two major reasons. One, they're really terrible ways to project strength, especially given the context of a girl pulling away or breaking up with you or bringing you down the compliance ladder. It's like someone getting fired from a job and then saying, "You can't fire me, I quit," that kind of thing. Not that these techniques don't have their merit, but it's like trying to put on a bulletproof vest after you've already gotten shot. Like, it's too late, bro. At that point, it just turns your relationship into a tit-for-tat type of situation. And it makes you look like you're trying to throw things at the wall and see what sticks. It just makes you look weaker. Especially if you try to use techniques like those in the initial stages of the compliance ladder. That is a big mistake. And the reason it's a big mistake is because it's very short-sighted. I know you've been told by people out there to not take any form of disrespect and have the ability to walk away. And again, I'm not saying those are bad things. But if you've been seeing a girl for a short period of time and you already show her your ability to walk away, no warning, no indicators, nothing, you just, "I'm leaving, I got disrespected," then what are you going to pull out when you're 3 years, 4 years, 10 years into the relationship with her? You already went with the nuclear option years ago. She's not going to take you seriously, my boy. And even worse, than you'd actually be forced to end a relationship for real, after all that time invested. Although you may be guaranteed to win, stop pulling out bazookas in a knife fight, dude. Because when the war blows out in large proportions, then you'll be out of ammo. I don't know if that was a good analogy, but I hope you get what I'm saying. Keep the nuclear option for later. So then what do I do, Jason? I'm happy you asked. I would go with a more indirect option for projecting strength so you don't look as try-hard or overcompensating. And what I'm about to tell you especially works in the later stages of the compliance ladder, by the way. And that is simply to give her power and then wait. Okay, this is going to be longer than I thought it would be. Let me properly explain myself here. You see, a natural byproduct of going down the compliance ladder is losing power in the relationship. Like, trust me, bro, that's how you got to this point in the first place. Because you kept losing power gradually. Which means at this point, while you're going down the compliance ladder, she now has some degree of power over you. And women on a biological level only prefer to consolidate on men that they feel are more powerful than themselves. Which is why you becoming less powerful than her equals you slipping down the compliance ladder. She's willing to do a lot less for you now. The problem with most men is when the woman in question begins to indicate disinterest, aka slip you down the compliance ladder, the natural urge for most men is to try to resist this process. They try to postpone it, they're in denial about it, they try to wiggle their way out of it, ask for another chance, or something like that. Or for the tiny percent of men out there that are crazy, they flare up, get angry, and even get violent. I have a much better solution though. Just go with it. And I'm gonna tell you why. You see, in most men's minds, the worst thing that can happen is a girl having power over them in a relationship. What I've come to find personally, though, over the years is that the one-down position to a girl is actually the best opportunity you have to get the one-up on her. I keep telling people, the dips and valleys in your relationships are actually just springboards you can use to catapult yourself into higher levels of compliance with your girl. As corny as that analogy is, you gotta pull back on the arrow to let it go forward even further and faster. The exact same thing applies here, and this is how. A big misconception people have is that women are emotional creatures. That is not entirely true. What women actually are creatures of instinct. They're instinctual creatures. And emotions are a slave to your instinct. All those things you see that women do that make no sense to you on an intellectual level make perfect sense on an instinctual level. Which means every decision she makes, whether she realizes it or not, is going to be propelling her towards her greater comfort, safety, and validation. Another way to put it is that they simply do not have the discipline to practice consciously the delay of immediate gratification. When they see the opportunity to take a little bit of comfort or validation or the feeling of safety and certainty, they're going to take it. They don't have the discipline to say no to that. And one of those rare opportunities is the ability to have power over a man, especially a man that she had respect for previously. She's not going to say no to the opportunity to psychologically put her foot on that guy's neck, especially if the guy is presenting his neck to her willingly. And therein lies their downfall, because you make them predictable by setting that as a trap for them. And they will predictably fall for it every fucking time. So on a practical level, all you have to do is give them the power over you that they will not say no to. And then just wait for them to make the mistake of trying to abuse that power over you. That'll be your chance to strike. A natural byproduct of going down the compliance ladder is losing power in the relationship. Like, trust me, bro, that's how you got to this point in the first place. Because you kept losing power gradually. Which means at this point, while you're going down the compliance ladder, she now has some degree of power over you. And women on a biological level only prefer to consolidate on men that they feel are more powerful than themselves. Which is why you becoming less powerful than her equals you slipping down the compliance ladder. She's willing to do a lot less for you now. The problem with most men is when the woman in question begins to indicate disinterest, aka slip you down the compliance ladder, the natural urge for most men is to try to resist this process. They try to postpone it, they're in denial about it, they try to wiggle their way out of it, ask for another chance, or something like that. Or for the tiny percent of men out there that are crazy, they flare up, get angry, and even get violent. I have a much better solution though. Just go with it. And I'm gonna tell you why. You see, in most men's minds, the worst thing that can happen is a girl having power over them in a relationship. What I've come to find personally, though, over the years is that the one down position to a girl is actually the best opportunity you have to get the one up on her. I keep telling people, the dips and valleys in your relationships are actually just springboards you can use to catapult yourself into higher levels of compliance with your girl. As corny as that analogy is, you gotta pull back on the arrow to let it go forward even further and faster. The exact same thing applies here, and this is how. A big misconception people have is that women are emotional creatures. That is not entirely true. What women actually are creatures of instinct. They're instinctual creatures. And emotions are a slave to your instinct. All those things you see that women do that make no sense to you on an intellectual level make perfect sense on an instinctual level. Which means every decision she makes, whether she realizes it or not, is going to be propelling her towards her greater comfort, safety, and validation. Another way to put it is that they simply do not have the discipline to practice consciously the delay of immediate gratification. When they see the opportunity to take a little bit of comfort or validation or the feeling of safety and certainty, they're going to take it. They don't have the discipline to say no to that. And one of those rare opportunities is the ability to have power over a man, especially a man that she had respect for previously. She's not going to say no to the opportunity to psychologically put her foot on that guy's neck, especially if the guy is presenting his neck to her willingly. And therein lies their downfall, because you make them predictable by setting that as a trap for them. And they will predictably fall for it every fucking time. So on a practical level, all you have to do is give them the power over you that they will not say no to. And then just wait for them to make the mistake of trying to abuse that power over you. That'll be your chance to strike. You wait for them to do exactly what you expect women to do and abuse the power they now have over you. And if done correctly, the very moment they do that will be your opportunity to flip the script and get the power back from them. Okay, hold on. Let me give you an example. You meet a girl, you instantly click, you go on a date, you go to your place after the date, You're now dating this girl for 3 months. 3 to 4 months is on average where most relationships break down for this exact reason, so watch this. She starts pulling away from you slowly. Replying to your text with one word, not picking up your phone calls, canceling on dates, etc. And her breaking rapport like that would naturally elicit seeking rapport from you. Another way to put it is that if you're like every other guy out there, her reducing her effort into you usually maximizes your effort in her. So now you're telling yourself, oh, hold on, I probably gotta go all out and do all this and buy her this gift, blah, blah. Which makes her want you even less because now you're making her the source of your happiness. Now right here is where you're supposed to go all gangster and be like, fuck that, I have the ability to walk away. But like, hold on this, just follow me on this one, let me do it my way. You go along with it and you pretend like you don't even notice anything. Now she's getting a little more comfortable, like, this motherfucker is oblivious. Good. So in pure female nature, because again, they lack discipline in this area, she's going to try to take even more advantage of that. Now she's even more entitled, even more demanding, and even less interested. Now at this point, she's gotten real comfortable, right? She is so certain she has you wrapped around her little finger. Good. That's what we want. That's when you strike. Eventually, she does something again that is just completely out of bounds. And that's when you let it happen. You let the dog out. You cuss this bitch out like you have never cussed anyone out. And you reiterate that you are not the man to play with. Then you bounce. Do you understand the rug pull that is for women? The reaction you get from them when you do that? Chef's kiss. Because it's completely unexpected. Hand to God, fellas. 100% success rate. User discretion is advised. She just got a heavy dose of masculinity from, in her mind, the least likely source. She is turned on for no reason right now. And soon enough, what do you notice? You're going up the ladder again. Congratulations.